Oh, we're recording already. Okay. I'm gonna have a drink here. Whew. Doesn't matter, Bree. I'm sorry. No, it's late. I'm sorry. Hang on, guys. How's it going? What are you guys doing over there in Hill Center, huh? What just happened there? There we go. Okay. All right, let's see. Okay. Oh, everybody's there. Good morning, good morning. Hi, Haley. Hi, Wellman. Union. I don't want to forget y'all. Oh, my goodness. Oh, somebody came on time. Oh, I'm getting excited. Let's see. I have finished my first section of summaries, and sorry, you guys will be the last section graded because you were first on the compare and contrast. So I finished my last section on summaries, and just to give you a heads up on that. So, and one of the things I noticed is that some of you may not have paid the best attention when Ms. Pineda went over how to get the correct citation form, when I went over it several times in class. So one more time, we're going to talk about how to make sure you get the MLA style citation, okay? And just because you might have gotten, well, I was trying to think, you know, sometimes you need to go look. The other thing I looked at is I got through most of the thesis statements and the 3 points. I saw a lot of, particularly in this section, you would say, I'm going to write about this, and then you give me the 3 points, but I couldn't tell what side you were going for. So you've got to be very clear in the thesis that you say, the death penalty should be abolished, and you give me the reasons. Or curfews do not benefit towns because blah, 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 blah. You have to have all of that in one sentence. That's the thesis. Saying curfews are good, curfews are bad sometimes. You know, you can't do that. You have to, in a thesis, very clearly state your point. But I was going to go over very quickly and one more time. And so it'll be at the beginning of class. So if you want to watch this video, I know they're thrilling to watch. If you want to watch this video, you can, and it'll show you very quickly how to get that correct citation, okay? And I'm not talking about opposing viewpoints. Opposing viewpoints defaults to MLA. So when you download an article from opposing viewpoints, you're going to get the right citation at the bottom of it. It's only when you're in the other databases, particularly Academic Search Complete, that you have to be careful. So this is the way I go in. I've trained myself to do that. And so Academic Search Complete is on that general article databases. When you go to when you're on the South Plains Library and Journal and Periodical Articles, general databases, Academic Search Complete is the first one, and that's the one that's EBSCO. And I can't tell you how many times I got to see the Brazilian national standard. And so let's see, I'll just type in curfew, because that seems to be a popular topic for some. Okay, so I'll type in curfew, and I'm gonna try to get to one that's a little bit better. Okay, I'll just go to the city struggle to quell violence, okay? I'm gonna open it up, but I'm not looking at the article, I'm strictly looking at a summary with an abstract. And remember, this is, actually I got the article. Not very much. So, when you're in here, you can get an HTML full record, but site is going to be over here on this side. You've got if your screen is small enough, you can see all the words and they tell you what it is. And so there's one that's a little, underneath the floppy disk, that's so funny to even think about a disk anymore, where it says save, you have site. So when you click on site, it brings this up. And the very first one is ABNT, which is the Brazilian National Standard, which is not MLA. Okay, so you got that wrong, okay? I'm just letting you know, you have to scroll down until it says MLA. That's all you have to do. And you're going to see it already looks different from some of the ones above it. So on MLA, all you got to do is, you can email that to yourself, or you can click and highlight it and copy it into a Word document. You're still going to have to do formatting, because formatting doesn't carry over when you're doing something like this. So I'm just opening up a Word document. And on Thursday, we're actually going to talk about how to get your works cited going. I'm going to put it on double spacing, wrong thing. Didn't mean to do that, it's too soon to do that. Come up here and do double spacing. I could do it from there, but I don't want to mess it up. Okay, so it's on double spacing. I'm going to copy in, there's the article. Now to do the hanging indent, all you have to do, and remember there was a video back at least 2 weeks ago that shows you how to do a hanging indent. Just make sure your cursor is in the top line. You go to that little arrow, and you come down to indentation, and click on special, and go to hanging, and it will show you on the preview, and then it's done. That's all it takes to do that correctly. And you're going to see that there it is. There's nothing else you have to do for EBSCO, okay? And that's done. It's that simple to do, okay? So that is one of those things to watch out for. But some of you did not get credit on turning in the thesis statement with the 3 reasons, or if you didn't, go and look and see. If you got 5, go back and look, because I may have said, you've got to take a stand, and it needs to be 1 sentence. That's a thesis. If you say, I just saw too many that were waffling back and forth. They were like, well, sometimes curfews are good, sometimes they're bad. I don't know what you're arguing. You have to give me a stand. The thesis has to be the first statement that says, this is bad, okay? So what I want to talk about right now is we are going to go over integrating quotes, which is what a lot of the handouts are, but one of the things you should have gotten is the outline for the rough draft, okay? Let me open it up. I was busy. I got here late today, so I ran down there and I was getting all this stuff scanned so that I could email summaries to schools. There we go. Okay, and the other thing I want to mention is that you should have a hard copy of this. There should also be, in the course, there will be let me get in the right class. You do have a virtual copy, a Word copy in the class, so when you go into your class, I'm trying to remember, I think it's in this week, but it might not be. Week 11, let's see. It might be in last week's. Yeah, it's in last week's, okay. Okay. So go to week 10, and you should have the rough outline. Or no, it's in week 12. It's in the week it's due. If I stop and think, it would make more sense to me. Yeah, it's in next week, because you have, and before, I forget to tell you, the rough outline shows that it's due for the high schools on Wednesday. I'm going to push it back to Friday. If you don't get it in on Friday, it's late. It is a required work. It is the outline and draft. It's worth 25 points. It's not extra credit. You have to do it. So if you don't, you're in trouble. So in week 12, you're going to see the weekly checklist. There's a Word document right there. You can open up the same document that I'm going to show you in just a second. Here it is. It's just not blown up, okay? There it is. And I would suggest you can feel free to get rid of the line, because trying to type on the lines doesn't work. But what the lines are for is for those of you who like to write by hand first, that's how you draft. You can fill it in on this and go back in and then delete all the lines in the Word document and then type it in, because I don't want to grade handwritten stuff. But I'm gonna, again, the high schools, it's gonna be due Friday. You guys have an advantage or disadvantage, is how you wanna look at it. If you are not gonna be in town the week of Thanksgiving, you need to turn it in on Friday. If you're gonna be here, come to class. We have class Monday and Tuesday at SPC. College doesn't get the whole week off like the K through 12 does, okay? Sorry. Was that a frown, Rodney? No, it wasn't a frown, okay. Yeah, well, you're gonna have kids at home, so you probably wanna come to class, right? So if you will come on Tuesday, it'll just be maybe 4 of us, 3.5, it depends on when he comes in, okay? I will go over your rough outline with each of you. I will take time to do each one of you during class period, and then you'll have it back in your hands. Theirs are gonna have to wait. I'm gonna look at theirs, all of the high school ones, over the break, so that when we come back, we're ready to really get writing on it, okay? So yours would not be due until class on Monday. If you don't come to class on Monday, it's gonna be counted late, and you still have to turn it in. Again, it's 25 points. All right, so let's go back over here to the outline. So remember, it's in week 12 if you want to do it. When I first went back to college, computers were barely being used, and I had a hard time using computers. They weren't nearly as friendly as they are now, but I would do a lot of work by hand. Now the only thing I draft by hand is I'll work on my syllabi for the next semester. I just print out the old one and I write all over it, so I do most of my drafting online. So here it is. It's been blown up, that's why it looks a little bit different. So what's your title? Don't say, is the death penalty good? Is the death penalty, don't make your title a question, all right? And so the introduction, first paragraph of the essay, opening, give an overview of the issue topic. I'm not asking you to write the entire essay, but by golly, when you look at this form and you fill it out, it's 3 pages, right? It's on the 3 pages. I'm grabbing a copy of it. Opening, what are you going to do? You could write down the word antidote, story about somebody who was executed and it was extremely painful. They smoked for 10 hours, meaning their bodies were smoking after being electrocuted for a long time, something along those lines. But then in B, you write your thesis. I did this yesterday, I called it a thesis, because I want a thesis with 3 reasons in it, okay? But that should be where B is at. And then on 2, so let's just say, I'm just going to write horrible antidote. See, this is why the lines are a problem on this. The thesis then would be penalty should be abolished, because I actually have somebody writing on the death penalty. I'm so excited, because it is not a deterrent, cost too much money, and is not administered equitably. Okay, there's the thesis. And so the thesis has 3 parts: not a deterrent, costs too much money, and I'm just doing this to kind of show you how it all blends together, and is not administered equitably. Okay, so it's not a deterrent, goes into, that is your first thesis point, so it comes down here to the first body paragraph, that's the second paragraph of the essay, the topic sentence for the reason would go in here. It's not a reason, it's not a deterrent, okay? Then you have supporting ideas. That's where you start, and if nothing else, if you have an article that supports the idea that it's not a deterrent, you could just copy the title of that article and put it in there and say, article this, or details, so you kind of fill in these things a bit. But you're gonna have to do research. You don't get to blow off the next 2 weeks. It's not, oh, the paper's not due until December 6th. Guess what? You need to be doing research, you need to be working on it, okay? You can't just say, oh, I'll do it the night before. You're not gonna get a good grade if you wait till the night before, okay? And trust me, you're turning it in through Turnitin, which is a plagiarism checker. So don't make me give you a 0 because you tried to buy a paper offline. Or a friend wrote one for a paper last year and you're gonna turn it in, because guess what? It's gonna show up, okay? So you've got to make sure, you can't just blow this off and say, I don't have to do it. I can do it later. That is not, we cannot procrastinate on this one, okay? So you do that for each of them. So you've got, and you may not have 1, 2, 3 supporting ideas for that first point. You may only have 2. You may only have 1. I'm not asking for 1,500 words. I'm asking for a minimum of 600, and that doesn't count the works cited. Because the works cited could be 100 words on its own easily. Okay? So then you get to the second body paragraph, so that's going to be that second reason, that costs too much money. You fill that in there. I'll just put it up here. Costs too much money. Supporting idea. All of the appeals. So I can come up with some ideas here. The actual cost of execution. I can't spell today, sorry. Execution. Details, you can actually get, that's where the details are, where you give the statistics. Another supporting idea is the cost of life imprisonment, okay? And then I only have so many, so I can go back. Then you go up, kind of the third one. I'm getting messages. That ding drives me crazy. So we go down to supporting idea 3. And again, you may not have as many supports. But one of the reasons you're short is because you don't have enough support. I'll tell you sometimes. I had somebody write 420 words on their compare and contrast. You can't really compare and contrast if you only have 420 words. You haven't done enough details. You haven't really given me enough of the comparison and contrasting to say. So is administered equitability, let's see, minorities, male, and the mentally challenged. Okay? That's actually 3 areas, okay? Because in fact, there's a guy whose IQ is only like 69, who they are appealing his execution right now because of his intellectual, lack of intellectual ability, okay? And so the fourth body paragraph, this is the counter argument. This is where you have to cover at least one of the opposing sides. So instead of writing a 5-paragraph essay, you're going to have a 6-paragraph essay. So you're going to have whatever the counter argument is. It makes cities safer. I don't know if that's one or not. I just kind of said it, okay? And then you'd have to go rebuttal. And you may not have other counter arguments. Just give me one. And then the conclusion, I like what it says here on this conclusion. You need to rephrase the thesis. Put it in the same words. Keep it in the same order. Don't switch the order. Just use slightly different words. You don't have to say death penalty. You can say capital punishment. So there are other ways to phrase your topic. But you're going to go back over the thesis. So you're going to rephrase it in the first one. And you're not going to begin it with in conclusion, because the last paragraph is always the conclusion. And then you need to go with a summary of the 3 supporting points. So yes, you may say it's not a deterrent in that restatement of your thesis. But then after that, you're going to say, executing a prisoner does not prevent other people from killing other people. You know, you're just going to reiterate it. It's okay to repeat yourself. You will do that for each, so you're going to have at least 4 sentences in your conclusion that way. And then the closing. You can tie back to the intro or give a prediction, a suggestion, a quotation, or a call to action. No questions, please. We don't use questions. In my class, I've said it multiple times, and I still get questions, which tells me you don't listen. And so if you want a bad grade, keep putting questions in your papers, okay? Now, there's a way to do it and do it well, but don't ever end it that way. So, but it would be like, say, if you wanted to compare, you know, you could create an analogy. I had a student get second at state, and she did this. She used a metaphor in an introduction, and she wove the metaphor all the way through it, and then in the end, she went back to the metaphor, and it was a really neat way to do it. But you could say something like, you know, I guess, see, yesterday I had a great metaphor, now I can't come up with one, but you can make a point, have some kind of little thing going on in the introduction, and you go back to the conclusion. Or if you are stuck, go to Google, all right? And if you're gonna say, if you wanna use a quotation, the easiest thing to do is come in here and go, quotes supporting, I don't know, the death penalty, okay? And just Google it like that. This becomes another source in your paper. It's not gonna count as one of your two sources from SPC that will allow you to make an A, because if you don't have them from SPC, guess what? You can't make an A. They've got capital punishment, good read. So you can just click on one of those, many that live deserve death and some that die deserve life. Can you give it to them? Oh, see, that's actually against it. Oh, I like this one. We should forgive our enemies, but not before they are hanged. That's pretty tough, okay? And the death penalty is not about whether people deserve to die for the crimes they commit. So see, there's quotes in there. Most of the quotes are gonna be against it, I'll just tell you. What on earth just happened there? Okay, so if you are stuck and your topic is curfews, just type in quotes about curfews. Or quotes about genetic engineering. Quotes about the Afghanistan war. Right, Rodney? Okay, because I remember looking at yours yesterday. Okay, so that's what you can do on this document. And it is due for the high schools on Friday, the 19th, instead of the Wednesday, the 17th, so I'm giving you an extra day. I don't know if you're still playing football or not, but if you're not, I know basketball started, but there probably aren't going to be tournaments that first weekend, or this weekend, I know. So if you've got basketball, don't use the excuse, well, I was gone because I had a basketball tournament to play in. Guess what? You've had this assignment now for 2 weeks, okay? I don't want excuses. I want you to do the work, all right? So let's go talk about integrating quotes now. See, there's one that, yesterday I made the mistake of sending a different quoting in papers than I thought I sent, so I had to do a lot of one. There's one that says quoting in your research paper. It's according to Mrs. Thompson and MLA. It's a Word document. It's one page. You can tell it, okay? So that's one of the things you have to start considering is how to quote. Now, on some of the compare and contrast, I got people who did use sources. And when you use sources, I ask that you need to reference them in the sentence where the information was used, because we weren't actually working on that type of document. Now you've got to give credit, you've got to do it correctly. So one of the ways you do it is an in-text citation referencing the author in the sentence. So the other thing that's come up on the summaries is, I'm pretty sure I said, don't ever use first names only. And I've had somebody, had 2 authors, and they would go, Mary and Jane, write that, blah, blah, and I'm like, do you not hear how when you use somebody's first name only, that's very informal, right? So if you walk in and say, Patty, that's informal. That implies we're friends. When you're in a formal academic document, you have to write informal, you have to use formal language. Okay, so here we go. Quan points out, Quan is the author. All right, highlight that one in blue. Points out that the Fourth Amendment does not give employees any protections from employers' unreasonable searches and seizures. That means when you work for a company, they can, when you're at work, they can go in and search through everything that you have there. Isn't that scary? That's why that's why when people do bad things on their company computers, you think, you're pretty stupid. There's always somebody monitoring computers, you know it. So the author's named in the signal phrase, there it is. Ordinarily, writers introduce the material being cited with a signal phrase that includes the author's name. In addition to preparing readers for the source, the signal phrase allows you to keep the parenthetical citation brief. Folks, parenthetical is parentheses. We get that? And so that's what 6 is. So Quan was the author. 6 is the page that it appeared on in the source. Okay. So we've got, so that's what it is. So when I read this paper and I see Quan 6, I go to the works cited, and then I find Quan on there, and if I want to go look up that information, I can. All right? I'll get that? So that's the first one. Then we've got another sample. Frederick Lane reports that employers do not necessarily have to use software to monitor how their employees use the web. Employers can use a hidden video camera pointed at an employee's monitor and even position a camera so that a number of monitors can be viewed at the same time. That's a little spooky. But I'll be honest, when I was teaching at New Deal and I was in the ITV room, the cameras all worked back then because that's been quite a few years ago, all right? And I could actually, when I was in the room and we weren't doing ITV, but my other classes, I could do the TV, get my camera to peer over the kids' shoulders so I could look at what was on their screen so I could tell if they were working or not. And, you know, it was sneaky, but yeah, you know, you're supposed to be doing your work, right? Okay, so we're on the one that says quoting by Mrs. Thompson, one of those documents, okay? All right, so Lane is the author, and parenthetical reference is the 147, that was the page number it came from. And so there's another interesting thing going on here. Do you see the word can, how it's in brackets? Let me blow this up a little bit. It's in brackets, and what that tells me is that in this quote, that word was changed probably from could to can. You have to, when you incorporate a quote, which is anything in a document, doesn't have to be contained in quotation marks, okay? You have to make sure that it grammatically works in the sentence. So that's why it's so that a number of monitors could be viewed at the same time, or can be. Could is conditional future. Okay, so you know, we're not going to talk all those different verb tenses. It's too confusing, even for me. Okay, so you have to do that. So, and that quote is from a printed source. So they tell you the signal phrase Frederick Lane report names the author. The parenthetical citation gives the page number of the book in which the quoted words may be found. If you'll notice, we've seen two quotes so far. Parenthetical reference is always at the end of the sentence, and it's always part of the sentence. It's not at the end of a quote, it's at the end of the sentence. The reason for that is in MLA is that it doesn't interfere with the meaning of the sentence. APA sticks in parentheses right after the author's name. They would have put, APA would have gone this, to let you know that that's when it was published. They don't care what page number it came on. APA is concerned about the year it was published. For them, the more recent, the better. MLA doesn't care about that. We care about making sure that the language is nice. So that's why you always put it in MLA, you always put parenthetical reference at the end of the sentence, and it's part of the sentence. So the period to end the sentence, no punctuation inside those closing quotes. It goes after parenthetical reference. You might want to write that down on the page, okay? Or it may actually say it somewhere. Oh, notice that the period follows the parenthetical citation. I did it in big bold letters for you. Okay, so the author's name in parentheses. You don't always want to introduce a quote by giving the author's name. What you can do, particularly if you've already quoted from that author, what you can do is you can just put it, if you know you have a quote from Lane early on in your paper and you quote from him again later, you'll just do it at the end of it. So there's no punctuation. So we've got companies can monitor employees every keystroke without legal penalty, but they may have to combat low morale as a result. So Lane 129. I know Lane was the author on page 129. When in doubt, if you are one of my students who has trouble hitting the minimum number of words, remember how the summary was supposed to begin? You can't believe how many times I've already graded a section and a half. How many times the summaries have not begun with, in the article, give me the title, by the author's names. The author discusses. You know how many times I haven't seen that? Probably 10. That's too many. That means people are not listening, okay? But in your writing, you can use that to introduce a quote. The author writes about how blah, 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 okay? And if you think about it, in the article, and say you got 5 or 6 words in that, and give me the author's names, you can add another 10, 11 words. Oh, that's 6%, isn't it? If you've got 10 words. So, but don't introduce every quote the exact same way, because that becomes boring and repetitious. Okay. That's the printed source. Author unknown. Now, some of you had articles that did not have authors. Okay. So, when you don't have an author, you have to use the title of the article. So, or you use part of it. Ding, ding, ding. A popular keystroke logging program operates invisibly on workers' computers, yet provides supervisors with details of the workers' online activities. That sounds like privacy invasion, doesn't it? Does SBC need to know that I am online shopping from Amazon while I'm at work occasionally? Maybe they do. Okay. But what we know is that when we see automatically in parentheses at the end of the sentence with the quote, if I go to the works cited page, I'll see that there's an article that begins with the word automatically. I don't have to give the whole title, just enough, just the first words, so that the reader can match it up to the works cited. And because it was an online, it might have been a website, okay? There's no page number. So you don't put anything down. You just go automatically. And that's a quote from the internet. So that's the easiest ways to deal with it. I do want to say I had several students in summaries who would go, and the article such and such from Gale Group or Gale Online, Gale Database, and then they would use Gale as the author tag every time. You don't reference a database as an author. When you didn't have an author, you either use the title of the article, the words of the article, or if you do it correctly, you could say, if it's close enough, you could go, it also discusses this, and it would refer back to the article, okay? All right, that's the first one. You've got one that says integrating quotes. It's got big type in the middle of it. I gotta find that one now. Here we go. It's the one that has the big thing up at the beginning. Let's see here. Okay. I can write on this one, if I haven't already done so. Okay, so this is just like that, but it's a little bit more professional looking than me typing it in a Word document. So we need to effectively integrate them. If you just set a quote in, that's more lower level. And if you haven't been taught to integrate quotes before, I'm sorry, I'm not your high school teachers, okay? They should be doing that, but I know they've got those dadgum tests they gotta teach for. I understand that. So there are 3 ways to incorporate a quote into your sentence. So use an introductory phrase separated from the quotation with a comma. As Rodriguez argues, the American conversation about race has always been a black and white conversation. And I do actually have somebody writing about racism. So you've got the author's last name and the page number. The American conversation, so you can do it at the beginning. The American conversation about race has always been a black and white conversation, comma, claims Rodriguez, or you can put it at the end. But you do have to have somewhere in that sentence, there has to be a reference. You can introduce the quote with the sentence that sets it up by using a colon. This one's kind of cool. Rodriguez uses his own observation of neighborhoods in California to demonstrate that cultural assimilation happens naturally when people live in close proximity. Colon. Culture is fluid. Ellipsis says there's some stuff that's been left out. You breathe it, you eat it, you can't help hearing it, okay? And then you can also splice the quotation into the flow of your own sentence. Rodriguez thinks the U.S. should adopt the Mexican model of a mestizaje. Did I say that right? I need help. Mestizaje society, which means, and 407. So there it is. So that's one way to do it. When the girl called herself the Blaxican, Rodriguez argues that by reinventing language, she is reinventing America. So that one's pretty good. So Blaxican from the thing, as is by reinventing language, she is reinventing America. Just to give you an idea of what's going on in there, at a guess, by reinventing language, she is reinventing America is a complete thought. So you don't have a word that's not a proper noun with a capital letter in the middle of the sentence. So what you do is you put brackets. Those are the ones that are right below, they're right above the comma and the quotation marks on your keyboard. What do you call those things, those things that make sets, that have a little point in them? What are those called? I don't do math, so I try not to do it. Let me phrase it that way. And so you put brackets around. So originally, in the original article, it was probably a capital E there. But Blaxican, because it's naming things it can do. So now they're going to talk about some of those things we see up there. Punctuation and quotation. No matter if your quotation appears at the beginning, middle, or end of the sentence, the citation goes at the end. Underline that, please. Goes at the end, always. Okay? And just for your reference, 409, I'll either call it parenthetical reference, or it'll be PR by the time I get done grading all your papers. I'll say PR wrong, something along those lines. Because, again, I'm going to be grading 85 papers in about 3 days. That'll be fun. That week before finals, okay? If the author's not indicated, include the author's name in the citation by Rodriguez towards the end. So you can see, again, parenthetical reference, periods after it, parenthetical reference, periods after it. So if there's an exclamation point or a question mark or part of your sentence, put them outside the quotation mark. So if it's yours, but I don't want you to do questions, so I'm going to cross that off. Don't do questions. unless you answer it right afterwards. How about if I phrase it that way? Yes, you can ask a question, but you better answer it. If you don't answer it, it's wrong. If you're asking the questions and a quote is part of it, the question mark goes after the quotation marks. Put them inside the quotation marks if they are part of the quotation. So if you quote somebody and they've asked a question and your quote ends at the end of that question, yes, you can have the question mark. But you would then have parenthetical reference after this, so I know that it's what's doing. It says use ellipsis if you're cutting material from the middle of a quotation. That's number 2 above, where you see the culture is fluid, you breathe it, you eat it, you can't help hearing it. And then use brackets to show changes you made to a quotation for it to fit grammatically in the sentence. So you've got these reference backs. So you have samples. So when you're writing and you're right before you turn it in, go back and look at these. It's like the apostrophe quiz that we're going to have this Friday. Okay? And so that was not the one I meant to open up, but that's okay. We'll open up the other one that's big. Now we're going to do the one that says when to quote, okay? Because sometimes we're not always sure when we need to quote. I've gotten lots more. Okay. All right, so quotations can enliven your writing if you know when to quote and how to integrate. In some disciplines, quotation is rarely used. In all situations, overuse should be avoided carefully. And so what I'm going to say right here, right now about that is 600-word minimum. If I look at your paper and I can see that it shows, and it's coming through Turnitin, which is a plagiarism checker. So when you quote, those quotes will show up, and it will tell me how much is quoted material. So if I open up a paper and it says 75% is showing up as coming from other sources, either you've plagiarized or you have too many quotes. That's what that tells me. You need to keep quoted material to, I think I read somewhere, they said 25. I'm thinking 30, 35 max. That's a third of the paper. And again, we're not talking about the works cited doesn't count, okay? So I don't want to see a paragraph that has a topic sentence and then the rest of it's all quotes. Quotes only serve to support what you're saying. They help prove it, okay? So according to MLA, quotations should merely help you illustrate or explain your ideas. So when to quote. The following criteria are adapted from a source about writing and reading across the curriculum. So memorable language. Sometimes somebody says something so much better than we can say it. And so you turn the phrase, you can use the phrase, the sentence, or passage. Avoid passages. I don't want huge blocks of text in this that are quoted from someone else. That means you're too lazy. Oh, wow, I can get 100 words out of this one quote. That's 1/5 of my paper or 1/6 of my paper. No, 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 no. We don't do that. Clear and concise language. Use quotations when the language in your source is so clear and succinct, which means brief and short, that any attempt to paraphrase it would be ineffective. And it's authoritative. Use quotation to add the authority of experts and prominent figures. Quotations from authoritative sources can be useful in supporting your argument. And that we talk about how to use those too. Language for analysis. Use quotation to highlight source passages that you will discuss and engage in rhetorical analysis. Probably not going to be a situation that you're going to do. All right. So how to integrate. This is going to be your third exposure to this in class. Normally it says it takes about 10 exposures for you to kind of retain something. So I've gotten 3 across today. Maybe. Integrate quotes with your own sentences. Do not stand quotations alone as sentences. It happens. If you do it every time, it will take off of the subjective portion of grading, the quality of your writing. If you just drop the quote in and you don't introduce it, and, that just means you're not writing at college level, okay? Provide signal phrases which include the author's name and a signal verb. MLA style uses present tense signal verbs, in-text citations, and full source listings on the works cited list at paper's end. So you've got Friedman states, Bittman is hardly learning with reflexive dismissals. This is something that I'm going to take a set and talk about the summaries, what happened on the summaries, okay? So since you're going to be the last section I grade, this is 8A. This is the last section. I've got people who, Friedman wrote the article, but Friedman quotes Bittman in it, and so instead of using Friedman as the author tag throughout the paper, they use Bittman, which is incorrect. The author tags have to be the person that wrote the article you're summarizing. So you have to watch out for that. And how, it's kind of like, ooh, you You have to be careful when somebody else is somewhere, telling you what someone else did. So that, just warning you that that's there. You vary the placement of your signal phrases and use a variety of signal verbs. Bittman is hardly alone in his reflexive dismissals, Friedman claims, okay? Here's a new one. Denying the humanity of other people has always been a way to justify oppressing and exterminating them, argues Olson, and science has a long, sad history of contributing to these atrocities. I'm not sure what that one comes from, but it's very interesting sounding, isn't it? So you can see, you've got the quote from Denying to them, and then you put the author tag in the middle of it, and then you've got page 13. So that's all you have to do. You can combine the paraphrase with the quotation to capture the idea and language necessary to express your point. So this is going to be a paraphrase and quote of this previous long one. Science has contributed to the long sad history of atrocities justified by denying the humanity of other people, Olson 13. You could also include the credentials of the author you're quoting in a positive phrase. You should actually probably have space after it. William McDonough, Green architect and co-author of Cradle to Cradle, that should be italicized, guys, I'm just letting you know. That is a book. States, nature operates according to a system of nutrients and metabolisms in which there's no such thing as waste. So, it's worthwhile to tell me that this is a green architect. He studied how to build things that are beneficial to the environment. That's what a green architect does, okay? So that's why it's in there. If I just said John Smith, farmer outside of Wellman Union, states, the farmer outside of Wellman Union probably is not a good source when you're talking about building environmentally safe buildings, right? Whereas somebody who's a green architect obviously has a degree, becomes a more reliable source. So give the credentials if you have them, which means a lot of times you'll have to go back to the original article, and a lot of times at the bottom, somewhere in it, or even at the top, they'll tell you what the credentials of the author are. To alter a quotation to clarify it or fit the grammar of your sentence, indicate any changes by placing the altered language in brackets. Okay, remember we saw that earlier. I'm gonna stick a bracket up here. The nice thing is you don't have to hit the capitals. Oh, that's not a bracket, that's a bracket, okay. Be careful not to alter the original meaning. And so what they're going to do here, it says, furthermore, Poland argues that to escape the Western diet, we must simply depart the realms it rules, the supermarket, the convenience store, and the fast food outlet. So what's going on there is, I would guess that Poland, whoever that is, wrote a sentence that says, to escape the Western diet, depart the realms it rules, the supermarket, the convenience store, and the fast food outlet. The reason we must simply, that's put in by the author of the paper. Whoever wrote it could have just said, we must depart. You didn't have to put simply, but you're going to need a subject and a verb to say who's speaking to make it make sense. Because you don't want to have you as the implied subject of the sentence. And that's what would happen there. So to shorten the quotation, use an ellipsis. That's 3 periods with a space between each. I hate, guys, underline with a space between each. When you smush them all together, it looks like a mistake. Somebody had a sentence. They ended, I don't know, I've graded so much over the weekend and yesterday. They had 3 periods right in a row, and I was like, is this an ellipsis, or did you just not take your finger off of the period in time? You know what I'm saying? So those are the kind of things that when you edit, you need to check. So Poland states American gas stations now make more money selling food, than gas, 192. So they took something out in the middle there and something out at the end. So if you omit words, you need to use ellipsis. And isn't that true? When I was young, gas stations might sell soda pop. Yeah, that's old, isn't it? And those machines, the big stand ones where you had to move the bottle down the little metal channel and get it over there and put your money in and pull it up. Guys, you haven't seen those. Rodney, maybe? Yeah. You know, they were kind of fun because they were always bottles, for one thing. And you might could get peanuts or maybe some jerky there, but that's it. And now, people, you know, when you run to Strike, are you really buying gas that often? You're buying drinks, lottery tickets, paper, candy, whatever. It's almost like a grocery store now. Okay. I just think that's interesting that that's happened. Gladys Block, Berkeley professor. Oh, to quote someone quoted in your source. I like this one. This is a good one to pay attention to. Include the phrase quoted in the parenthetical citation. The best practice is to search for the original source quoted by your source if available. I'm going to tell you, if you're quoting somebody who your paper has quoted, Don't go find the original source. This is not a huge paper. You can do what they say to do here. Gladys Block, Berkeley professor and epidemiologist, there is the qualifications of the person that's being quoted, says, I don't believe anything I read in nutritional epidemiology anymore. And see how it says quoted in Poland 78? That way you're covered. You're saying, this is a quote from somebody. Technically, it should actually read like this. You should actually have quotes, then an apostrophe. It's called a quote within a quote, an apostrophe there, so you can see. Let me blow that up a little bit more. Okay. See how there's two there? There should be an apostrophe. If you're quoting something that was quoted in your article, how you show that to the reader is, you put quotations where it begins, where your quote begins, and then you do the apostrophe to show that this was in quotation marks in the article that I'm using. And then there's that last apostrophe shows ending that quote and then double quotes after it. So if the quotation runs more than 4 lines in your text, don't do it. If you've got a quote that you think is so important that that it's really long, you need to put it in, you need to send it to me and tell me how it relates there, and I'll let you know if you can use it or not. Because that's the easiest way to get the length, okay? Is to have a lot of offset quotes, and I really don't want them. So here we go. And this is what it's talking about, but this is not even structured correctly. So let's go skip on down to punctuation. So you introduce a quotation with a comma, unless the word that follows the signal verb, no comma. Use a colon if the language preceding forms a complete sentence. Poland urges, comma, avoid food products that make health claims. Poland reports that. If you have the word that in there, you don't get a comma. Americans are increasingly eating in solitude. Poland proposes developing a strategy for navigating the supermarket. Here it is. That's a great way to do it. If you keep to the edges of the store, you'll be that much more likely to wind up with real food in your shopping cart. Okay, so what I want to say right now is you need to be doing research. So you need to get out there and do that, okay? I'm not too early. I was 15 minutes early at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock yesterday morning. I went through it so fast. So, apostrophe quiz, we're going to talk about how to do the works cited. So you might start making sure you've got sources, okay? Because I'm just going to pick, I don't know if I'll do curfew or death penalty, but I'm just going to create a works cited on Thursday in class. And then we're going to review for the apostrophe quiz, which is Friday. And let me tell you, if you don't take it during school, high schools, I'm going to be really upset. You need to be taking it during your class time, not postponing it and trying to take it at home. You need to take it during class, okay? You guys are a different situation. You have jobs, you have lives, okay? And I won't even see you on Friday. They have people to monitor them, okay? So that's all I've got for today. And I am hoping I won't have all the summaries graded by this weekend, but I should have them all graded by next Tuesday to get back to you, okay? Hmm. Good morning.
Thought my head felt fluffy.
Oh, look, it looks fine, it doesn't look that fluffy, okay? Okay. Ah, where are you starting today?
A little daycare academy.
Okay. Cool. Believe it or not, I've graded your summary. I've actually finished the section. I don't know why you gave me two, you only needed one.
Two,
You gave me, you had me
oh,
two, and you actually have two summaries, so I just graded the first one, okay?
well, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Are you sure you want to stay? I do want to let you know, there will be more extra credit, there'll be a big revision, assignment for the argumentative essay. Just trying to help. You know, it's getting better. Can you read my handwriting?
Yeah.
Okay. And you wouldn't believe how many times I have to stop and erase because I've written it and I can't read it. But, that's one thing, I do give intense feedback. And if you don't have a
Your
lot
conference is
of
scheduled
feedback,
to
I'm
end
gonna
in
do
2 minutes.